When I was little, I used to read before I slept at night, and I read by the light of a lamp clipped to my headboard, stark white and bright against the darkness of my room. I dreaded turning it off. What if I reached out, just past the edge of the bed, and something waiting there grabbed me and pulled me down into the dark? This is the introduction to the comic Through the Woods, a collection of 5 short stories created by the immensely talented Emily Carroll, taking you on a descent into madness through the lens of Gothic horror. I really dig this comic. I came across it a couple months ago and was amazed that something like this exists. With this video, my goal is to highlight what makes the comic worthy of a Macho Recommendation, while also drawing from my own personal experience from it, to hopefully give a sincere and compelling reason to check this out. With that stated, get comfortable, break out a fine beverage of choice, and for added effect, dim or shut off the lights, as I take you through this gothic nightmare. And to properly begin, let's talk about the medium of comics. With any medium of art, there are rules and limitations to consider. Every story cannot be told the same way, because every story is different. What it tries to elicit, what it's about, and who's creating it. There are infinite ways of creating art, and it's ultimately a subjective topic that's impossible to be 100% objective about what is the best. But narrowing this down, comics have unique limitations that other mediums don't. It's a way of storytelling that uses a combination of panels, text, and images to tell a story. It doesn't have sound effects to heighten its immersion. It doesn't have an audience moving around and experiencing it like a video game. It doesn't have actors to convey what the characters are going through. It's all subject to what can be put on paper. And that sounds like a massive limitation at first, something that is nearly impossible to work with. But all you need to do is read a comic and realize the quality of what can be possible. Because of its straightforward construction, it doesn't require a huge team to create like a movie or a game. Anyone can create a comic, and incredible ones are just as outstanding as any show or creation in another medium. Some are works that remain incredibly near and dear to my heart, and comics that really strike a chord with me use their medium to do things only they can do. And Through the Woods is an excellent example of this. To restate what I mentioned earlier, the core of most comics are the art, panels or layout, and text. The combination of these things make a comic something of its own. With Through the Woods, none of these aspects feel like they're wasted. I'll show you a couple examples to try and highlight this, starting with one of my favorite of the stories, A Lady's Hands Are Cold. Early on in the story, our main protagonist is having dinner with their new husband at his manor, and check out how this dinner is presented. We see the husband enjoying the meal, but not showing us the entirety of his face, only displaying the bottom of it. The blood dripping from the meat and the edges of his mouth creates an impression of a ghoulish figure. And at the page's bottom, the protagonist's ribbon wrapped around her neck is the same color as the blood, positioned directly next to the panel with the plate and the bloodied silverware, or goldware in this case. The page uses its layout and art to communicate the uneasiness of the dinner, the horror lying in wait, and the distrust of the husband, displaying him as a monstrous being. Or check out this example in My Friend Jaina. Most of the story, our two characters have been speaking to each other with regular speech bubbles. The font is colored in black and then white against a dark background. But partway through the story, late at night, one of our characters is sleeping in bed. But when the younger sister tells the friend she's too tired, she responds with red text and white speech bubbles, elongated to fit most of the large panel. Using the medium of comics, it conveys the sheer "oh shit" of this moment by using the color of text, communicating that whatever is claiming to be Jaina is certainly out of place and has malicious intentions for her friend. Or, for a more subtle version of this, check out that introduction I read at the beginning of this video. Rather than having closed, uniform boxes for each panel, the pages are drenched in shadow. Each page is lit by a lamp, and the boxes are blended in the shadows, having no clear starting point. The small splotches of darkness reflect the unease of the narrator, as the darkness is kept at bay, dreading the moment they turn the lights off. Through the Woods utilizes the strength of the medium of comics to help make it a fantastic horror read. But besides the visuals, what about the actual horror aspect of this book? When I look back on Through the Woods, I don't think of a particular iconic monster. I don't think of jump scares that got my blood pumping until I calmed down. I think of the uneasiness in my stomach that sticks with you long after you finish the comic. Not the life-threatening kind, but the fun kind. The kind you know is pretend, and you go about your day. But in those moments alone, late at night, you catch yourself thinking, I know it isn't real. But what if it was? The stories are tales of Gothic horror with large, imposing mansions, isolations, and beings that may wear the skin of humans like a glove, but their flesh cannot disguise the monster that lies within if you look close enough. I'm quite a fan of the Gothic horror aesthetic, if you will. Bloodborne is my favorite From Software game, and the fully realized setting of Yharnam plays a lot into that. I ran a Dungeons & Dragons game with some incredible people using the Curse of Strahd module, and when I saw the Resident Evil 8 reveal with the Domatress castle and the tall, aristocratic vampire lady, I almost peed my pants. So a comic focused on something similar really gets me psyched. But what I appreciate about Through the Woods' take on Gothic horror is how all the stories are linked together by the linchpin that is death. In one way or another, death is a common theme in each story, though its relationship is different. For example, let's compare the first story, Our Neighbor's House, to the third story, initially created as a webcomic, His Face All Red. The first story focuses on three sisters in their home, as their father goes out on a hunt, saying that if he doesn't come back in 3 days, the girls should pack some food, don their cloaks, and journey to their neighbor's house. For the first day, the girls think nothing of it. Their father will be back before they know it. But as the days pass, after seeing a blood-red moon in the sky, one of the sisters knows her father will not be coming back. In this story, death is something that happens quietly. No escalation leads to them passing away, but a quiet indifference from the world around them. Now compare that to the third story. Our protagonist lives in a village that idolizes his brother. He's got a lovely home, a fantastic wife who cares about him, fine clothes, and a way with people that the villagers love about him. With the rumor of a beast slaughtering sheep, our protagonist volunteers to hunt it down, a suggestion returned in laughter, until his brother decides to join him. So the two venture into the woods, traveling deeper into the wilderness, civilization growing more distant until it's just them and the beast. When the creature finally reveals itself, the protagonist hides, and when he eventually gathers his courage, he ventures out of his hiding spot to find his brother, discovering the beast over the grass-covered soil. The brother had slain the creature. The two laugh at the narrator's fright of the wolf, and it slowly dawns on him that the village will once again shower the praises of his brother, the man everybody loves. That makes his decision obvious. Rather than death being something that slowly approaches our characters, like in Our Neighbor's House, in this story, death is the solution for our main character. A tool to solve his feelings of inadequacy, death makes him look like the village's savior by slaying the beast and the sole survivor with his brother's corpse lying somewhere in the woods, his face all red. Through the Woods focuses on death and the multiple forms it takes, from how emotionally distraught it leaves us years after it occurs, or how suddenly or quietly it appears. But this display of the macabre isn't the main focus. That would be the monsters in this story. Creatures with no explanation but are living in these stories, awaiting their chance to make themselves known in shocking displays of horror. And it's in these displays where another part of these stories occurs. Right when we hit a moment of realization, the stories just end. I know Through the Woods isn't the only thing that uses this approach to horror storytelling. I've read a bit of Junji Ito, and he does something similar with his short stories. But it reaches a point where I really want to know what happens, only for the tale to conclude and leave me guessing what happens next. So I would say if you aren't into stories that don't give a straightforward conclusion, you might not dig Through the Woods. The stories do a fantastic job of immersing me into their settings and having the confidence to end on their own terms. While I would love to see more, that's not its style. I'll respect it for what it is, not what I want it to be. And the moment that really stuck with me months after I read it is right near the end of the comic. The thing that really sealed the deal as this book being something I wanted to share was a section labeled "In Conclusion." And to do that, I've got to set the scene. So imagine this. You're getting ready for bed and decide to check out this neat book you found at a thrift store. So in bed, you start... wait a minute. So in bed, you're reading this book. Some of the stories are a little spooky. A Gothic castle, fratricide, and a flapper-looking girl with their skin worn by a monster with piano key teeth. It's unsettling, but cool in a morbid Gothic aesthetic kind of way. But then you get to In Conclusion. And this section of the book shares a very similar setup to Little Red Riding Hood, a young girl traveling to a relative's house before it gets dark. Visually, it looks incredible. The stars are in the night sky, and a range of colors make the forest look whimsical. And it's a nice way to conclude the stories. The girl makes it to her mother's, and as she goes to sleep, she concludes the story with, "What a fine night, what a good walk. I know the wolf wouldn't find me."
"Oh, but you must travel through these woods again and again,"
said a shadow at the window.
"And you must be lucky to avoid the wolf every time. But the wolf only needs enough luck to find you once."
Holy shit, dude, what the f***? So, as embarrassing as this is gonna sound, this moment got to me. Like, really got to me. I hadn't felt that level of sheer terror in a long time. And I usually been someone who isn't really spooked at horror-related stuff. And I can't even articulate what it is about this that fills me with dread. It could be the artwork and how terrifying the eyes are, the sudden change in tone from the rest of the story, the thought that it only takes one slip up and the wolf could get you, or all of the above and then some. And this got me bad enough that for a few days I would delay going to the bathroom in the middle of the night because I thought the goddamn picture would be waiting for me in the darkness. And you might say that sounds extremely stupid, and I agree with you. But during those moments, knowing it wasn't real didn't matter. That feeling of horror and dread was tangible, and if a piece of art legitimately gave me nightmares, it's gotta be doing something right. I have no idea what your reaction to this comic will be, but all I can say is Through the Woods gave me nightmares, so thank you, Emily Carroll. Your illustrations have haunted my dreams. You're great at what you do, and because of the quality of this comic, Through the Woods is definitely a Macho recommendation. Thank you so much for checking out this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. This comic is amazing, and I wanted to do it justice by sharing it with you. If you've already read it, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, and if you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. I make videos on media I really enjoy and love sharing it with people. If that sounds like something you're into, feel free to subscribe and stay up to date with any future Macho recommendations. If you dig comics, here's a playlist of stuff I talked about so far, and here's a suggestion about something you might be into. Thank you again for checking this out, and have a wonderful rest of the day.